Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal mid-Rosh and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
That entertainment, Julian Assange demands that the United States drop its witch hunt against WikiLeaks. A White House spokesperson says that Entertainment Tonight and the White House press corps are equally important. Sultan Kanish points out correctly that moderate Islam is a mirage, and the question that must be asked, will America forsake Israel? My name is Howard Riell, and this is Riell Truth. You're listening to the American Freedom Network, streaming live around the world at AmericanNewsNet.com, and on Facebook, and on YouTube, and on Riell TV, and in the book, Riell Truth, Stay Angry, and of course, as always, broadcasting out across the Colorado Front Range on KHNC, Johnstown, Colorado, 1360 AM, The Lion. Our call-in number, 877-254-7524. My friends, I hope you're planning on being right here on Thursday, when my guest will be attorney Michael Snyder, the founder and editor of the Economic Collapse blog and the End of the American Dream blog. It's going to be a show you won't want to miss. Back to business. Item from CNN Dateline London. Julian Assange demanded that the United States drop its witch hunt against WikiLeaks on Sunday as he made his first public appearance after months effectively confined to the Embassy of Ecuador in London. As WikiLeaks stands under threat, so does freedom of expression and the health of our societies, the founder of website said to cheers from his supporters outside his embassy. The U.S. war on whistleblowers must end, Assange said, calling for the freedom of Bradley Manning, the U.S. soldier suspected of giving hundreds of thousands of pages of secret American government documents to Assange for publication on WikiLeaks. Assange also referred to the New York Times, the Bahraini activist Nabil Rajab, and the Russian feminist punk band Pussy Riot in his 10-minute appearance. The founder of WikiLeaks spoke from a balcony at the Embassy of Ecuador in London, where he's been holed up since June. His lawyer, Baltazar Garzon, called earlier for him to be given safe passage from Ecuador to Britain on, quote, my friends, they can call on whatever they wish. The machine does not take lightly those who shine the light of day on it. The machine reacts. The machine is arrogant. It doesn't want any challenges, and it won't brook any dissent. And if someone like Julian Assange steps up into the limelight, it is going to do its best to make an example out of Mr. Assange, which I hope it fails to do, because as I've said on this show many times, I believe Julian Assange is a hero. I believe that he is shedding light on the darkest Leviathan, darker than anything Hobbes ever thought of. It is a machine that thrives on darkness, on secrecy, on opaqueness. And that darkness is killing all of us. It is heroes like Julian Assange who may be able to save the day. He deserves our support and our loyalty. Item from MichelleMalkin.com, written by Doug Powers. This morning, during the questioning about dodging the White House press corps in favor of People magazine, ESPN, Entertainment Tonight, and local reporters, Stephanie Cutter said that E.T. and the White House press corps are, quote, equally important. If E.T. and the White House press corps are equally important, then the latter better get busy reporting on Jennifer Aniston's engagement. And why aren't People magazine and Entertainment Tonight allowed a seat in press briefings? Doesn't America deserve to know how Jay Carney's take on Hollywood's hottest bikini bods, Ryan Locke's search for the perfect girl, and how Jenny McCarthy's doing post-breakup? Wipe your faces because you've just had spit applied to them. When a White House spokesperson says that the White House press corps is no more important than Entertainment Tonight, what she's saying is you people are boobs. You're fools. And you're to be treated like simpletons, like children. Well, the tragic truth is that a lot of Americans are indeed boobs and children. Plenty of blame to go around, but if that's been the case, then let those Americans begin today with the spit of the White House press secretary on their face. Let them say to themselves, I'm not a child, I'm a grown-up. And if I've been acting foolishly, if I've been spending more time watching Entertainment Tonight than I have been keeping up on the news of the day, well then today that changes. And then this outrageous statement from Stephanie Cutter will have served to accomplish some good. Item from Daniel Greenfield at Sultan Kanish. Moderate Islam is a mirage, a projection of desperate Westerners of their own values and culture on an entirely different religion and culture. It's a mirage that many Muslims are eager to uphold in the same way that desert merchants might sell goblets and bowls of sand to passing travelers foolish enough to confuse water with dust. And like travelers who think they're drinking water when they're actually swallowing sand, it's a deception that will eventually kill the deceived. When the Western cultural elite look at Islam, they see what they see to avoid falling into crisis mode. Like the traveler who'd rather choke on sand than face up to the fact that he's lost in the desert, they'd rather keep most things as they are, even at the cost of the extinction of the nations they preside over, than confront the full scope of the threat surrounding them. A threat that they had a hand in nurturing and feeding in the name of goals that seemed to make sense at the time. The Muslim world has technology, but no civilization. Western nations have given to the Islamic East the appearance of nationhood and the fruits of industry without ever acknowledging that they were tossing pearls before swine. A pig wearing a pearl necklace is still a member of the porcine family, only now it's a well-dressed pig. We have dressed up the Muslim world, but underneath it is not so different from the warring tribes that Muhammad tried to glue together with Islam. That's why Islam retains the power that it does. Islam does not have a separation of mosque and state because there really is no state. Only the mosque. The great dream of over a millennium of a transcendent global Muslim unity. A great leap forward across the chasm of tribal savagery and into the caliphate, which will undo all the achievements of all other peoples and demonstrate once and for all that the Muslim is supreme over all the rest of the world, unquote. My friends, what Mr. Greenfield is writing here is true. That's why it's incumbent upon the United States and the West in general to slap the piss out of the Muslim world and say to them, no, your aspirations for world dominion go no further than today. Will they learn the lesson? I'm guessing they won't. That's when it really gets fun. This is Riell Truth. It's Monday. We'll be back.
He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 10 through 13. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245. Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescent to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188.
Welcome back to a brand new week of Riell Truth, my friends. I've got so many news items and so many videos sitting, waiting to be presented to you. It's very bad. Well, it's good for me as a host because I'm not going to run out of stuff to talk about. It's bad for us. There's lots of things wrong, lots of evils competing for our attention. All right. That said, Reason Magazine's Matt Welch recently sat down with Judge Andrew Napolitano at Freedom Fest 2012. Now, you know, last week I presented to you from the Economic Collapse blog 40 reasons why Obama and Romney are essentially the same candidate. It's a shocking and an appalling thing, but it's true. And I'm going to have the guy who wrote it here on Thursday. Matt Welch is sitting down talking to Judge Napolitano not only about the ramifications of the Supreme Court's ruling on the individual mandate, but whether or not there is a substantive difference between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney from a libertarian perspective. Let's listen.
Those of us who really yearn for a return to first principles, the natural law, the Constitution, a government that only has powers that we have expressly consented that it may have, are frustrated with the choice between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney.
Hi, I'm Matt Welch for Reason TV. I'm at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, and I am tickled to be joined with our good old friend, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Thank you for joining us, Judge.
Pleasure to be here, Matt.
I'm talking to you not long after the Supreme Court Obamacare decision, the John Roberts two-step. Is it a incredibly wild loss for liberty? Are you more optimistic in the Randy Barnett sense of maybe, we won the long game and lost the short one? Where do you come out?
I am not optimistic. I think the opinion was the jurisprudential equivalent of passing a camel through the eye of a needle. I think that it's totally unprecedented, out of the blue, contrary to prevailing standards of interpreting the Constitution, and contrary to everything all the lawyers who argued before the Supreme Court said. I can't get in the Chief Justice's head any more than anybody else can. Only he could tell us why he had this sudden change of mind. What he succeeded in doing was granting Congress power on a platter that Congress never even realized it had. So Congress cannot say to you under the Commerce Clause, you may not wear a blue tie. But Congress can fine you for wearing the tie as long as it refers to the fine as a tax. That is a power without limitation. Congress can now regulate any private behavior it wants as long as the penalty for not complying with Congress's regulation is a financial penalty, and as long as you call that financial penalty a tax.
Now, the Randy Barnett counter-argument is that, well, this was so narrowly tailored and tortured that this precedent really basically only applies to this decision.
The statute's proponents denounced the idea that it was a tax. We live in a society where judges and justices resolve disputes between parties. They don't come from out of the blue and create an entire new structure in an effort to satisfy the parties. They rule on the basis of the Constitution and the law. So to call something a tax that no one in the case referred to as a tax is a gross form of judicial activism, in this case enhancing the power of the federal government, which by definition assaults the power of the states and saps personal freedom.
This is a 5-4 decision. There's been plenty of them. The court has been pretty split along 5-4-ish lines, depending on how you look at it.
This is the oddest 5 that we have seen in modern times in a major decision.
But people who get excited about partisan politics more than, let's say, you or I get excited about partisan politics will point to a presidential election and say, hey, look, you know, on much program, you're always talking about how the Republican Party very rarely can be trusted on issues that we care about in terms of fiscal discipline and just respecting individual freedom. But they'll say, hey, look, in a 5-4 universe, the president matters, so you've got to back the one who isn't Barack Obama in this case, because he might nominate 3. Does this type of argumentation move you?
Yes, it moves me and it frustrates me because I am deep ideologically and personally in the camp of Ron Paul and Gary Johnson. I realize they're not running together, but just for the sake of the folks watching this, to place myself. And I have articulated on air and will say again what I think is demonstrable. Mitt Romney's views are closer to Barack Obama's than they are to Ron Paul's or Thomas Jefferson's. I think that's demonstrable. I don't think there's any spin in that, and I think that could easily be demonstrated. So those of us who really yearn for a return to first principles, the natural law, the Constitution, a government that only has powers that we have expressly consented that it may have, are frustrated with the choice between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. And it's a difficult choice to make. Does one vote for Gary Johnson as a way of demonstrating there's a huge base of libertarians out there, and even though you're going to be president, Governor Romney, we're going to be watching you? Or does one vote for Mitt Romney because he's the lesser of two evils and is not likely to give us Supreme Court appointments of the nature that Barack Obama has? I myself have not yet resolved this. I work with some wonderful people on 6th Avenue and 47th Street in New York City called Fox, and most of my colleagues believe, and I share this view, that Barack Obama is arguably the president most dangerous to human freedom since Abraham Lincoln. So there's a great groundswell amongst libertarians to toss some support to Mitt Romney so that we never have to live in fear of what Barack Obama might do by executive order or decree. After all, he's killed Americans on his own and claimed he has the right to do this. This is an extremely dangerous person. But the short answer to your question is, yes, I'd rather have Mitt Romney choose a Supreme Court nominee than Barack Obama.
What's next for the judge? What are you working on? New books, new activities?
My next book, which comes out after Election Day, is a history of and an assault on the progressive era. And the title is Theodore and Woodrow, How a Republican and a Democratic President Destroyed the Constitution. My column has taken off. It's in a lot of nice venues. The
Reason.com.
It's at Reason.com. It's in the Washington Times, and I enjoy it very much. A lot of my Fox colleagues have sort of rediscovered Judge Napolitano, and some days I'm actually on air more than I used to be in the happy Freedom Watch days. So it's a busy, happy life of addressing these issues in a meaningful way and still being the night watchman of a government that will steal your property and your freedom if you let it.
That's great. The watchman. You remember I've used that word very recently, my friends. In Hebrew, it's the shomer, the watchman. We stand and we watch for threats. And when we see a threat, it's our obligation, it's our duty to warn our fellow citizens. Judge Napolitano does an excellent job of that, which is why I like him so much. I try and do everything that I can do, and so do you by listening to this show and listening and reading Judge Napolitano's works. Let's move on. Items from the Washington Times. Two groups of activists known as the Raw Milk Freedom Riders and Lemonade Freedom Day are taking their raw milk and lemonade to the lawn of the U.S. Capitol to celebrate what they call their right to voluntary exchange. Recent shutdowns of children's lemonade stands and SWAT-style raids on small farmers have inspired mothers and activists to take their message to the Capitol, where they plan to risk criminal charges and possibly jail by gathering for a picnic with these quote-unquote illicit foods. National Lemonade Freedom Day founder and one of the main organizers of the August event, Robert Fernandez, began the tradition after seeing multiple news reports about children's lemonade stands being shut down because they did not comply with regulations. The FDA has also engaged in several long undercover sting operations and raids against peaceful farmers and buying clubs all over raw milk. FDA is also pressuring states to restrict raw dairy access, unquote. Did someone say police state? Item from FrontPageMag.com. At its General Council meeting in Ottawa last Wednesday, the left-wing United Church of Canada demonstrated once again why predictions of its eventual disappearance are not to be dismissed. Instead of focusing on spiritual issues, as one would expect a church body to do, the council used its National Assembly as a platform to engage in the decidedly less friendly religious activity of Israel bashing. A report commissioned by the church leadership and presented at the week-long meeting that ended August 18th declared that Israel's, quote, occupation of Palestinian territory is a main reason for the conflict there and calls for a boycott by church members of goods produced by Israeli settlements on the West Bank. Stop! My friends, I don't know whether to chalk this up to abysmal ignorance or unforgivable anti-Semitism. You have to be deaf, dumb, and blind, with an emphasis on dumb, to think that, first of all, that there's such a thing as a Palestinian people. There aren't. There isn't. That there's such a thing as Palestinian land. There ain't. You've also got to be deaf, dumb, and blind to think Palestinians have been mistreated by Israel. The main gripe I have with Israel is that they've been so welcoming for these murderers and supporters of terrorism. During the 64 years of Israel, they have thrown open their society. The Arabs living in Israel are the best educated Arabs on the planet. They have the highest standard of living in the Arab world, in the Middle East. They have full rights as citizens. They sit on the Supreme Court in Israel. They're free to do as they please in Israel, and what they please is to try and bring about the end of Israel. It was a nice idea. It was worth a shot. My philosophy is this. If you try something for 64 years and it doesn't work, worse. If you try something for 64 years and all it brings is war, terrorism, bombs, genocide, maybe, possibly, just could be, time to try something else. Item from Front Page. Today, Israel can stand tall in the face of its important ally because it never asked American soldiers to spill their blood for its defense. It's Washington that must beg for Israel's alliance and protect the Jews, as it cannot afford disengagement from the only democracy in a region dominated by Islam. Will the U.S. eventually be compelled to sacrifice Israel on the altar of realism and oil price? When Iran's knife will descend on the Jew, and will the Jewish state's leadership dutifully bind Israel on the altar? As Charles Krauthammer spelled it out, quote, for Israel the stakes are somewhat higher, the very existence of a vibrant nation and its 6 million Jews, unquote. If Israel won't be able to change the U.S.'s red line on Iran and Jerusalem capitulates to Washington's appeasement, the Iranians' ghoulish utopia will soon be armed with atomic bombs. And the Jews, they will be psychologically weaker and totally dependent on others' help, like it was before and during the Holocaust. Item from Algemeiner.com. A multi-million-dollar theme park funded by Hezbollah will feature family-friendly rides and activities that encourage and celebrate terrorism against Israel, according to a documentary aired on VICE. That's a media website. The website's film crew went to Melita, Lebanon, to visit Hezbollah's theme park, documenting the Shia terror group's interactive propaganda effort in the form of the park's barbed wire, tanks, rockets, archived video footage, and exhibitions of weaponry used in their fight for, quote, martyrdom against Israel. The park's attractions also include models of recreated war scenes, displaying destroyed Israeli tanks and other scenes of wreckage and fatality, including gravestones. A feature video shown in the park educates visitors about Hezbollah's history and its mission to destroy the Jewish state. According to the UK's Daily Mail, Israel believes Hezbollah has an arsenal of over 40,000 rockets, including some that could potentially reach Tel Aviv. Hezbollah, funded by Iran and Syria, has also been accused of establishing rocket villages in southern Lebanon designated to fire into Israel, unquote. My friends, it was Winston Churchill who made a statement about the Germans back through today about the Muslims. Winston Churchill said they're either under your foot or at your throat. You want to go to a theme park and have a nice day and learn how to murder innocent men, women, children? Well, now you know where to go, courtesy of our State Department's good friends in Hezbollah. We'll be back.
Just a good old boy.
Hi, I'm Eric Cedarstrom. For over a decade, I've been the CEO, shipping clerk, and janitor of the Patriot Trading Group. And in that time, I've made friends with tens of thousands of like-minded individuals all over this country, most like me, trying to raise a family, run a business, and make sense out of a world gone mad. I'm proud of the fact that through stock bubbles, housing bubbles, and financial chaos, our customers are prospering and doing very well. By keeping our prices fair and our service fast, we find that 80% of our customers not only reorder, but they tell their friends. Don't be fooled by hype and high pressure. Do business with a company you can trust. Call the Patriot Trading Group at 1-800-951-0592 or check out our website at allamericangold.com. You'll be treated with honesty and respect. You have my word on it. I'm Eric Cedarstrom, CEO, shipping clerk, and janitor.
Making their way the only way they know how.
The Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He makes the plans of the peoples of no effect. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people he has chosen as his own inheritance. Psalm 33, verses 10 through 12.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. This is the America News Network. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal, mid-Rosh, and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
Welcome back to Riell Truth. Howard Riell presiding. You know, I try and present you folks with the smartest people I can possibly find. You just heard from Judge Andrew Napolitano. Now here is conservative writer, thinker, educator, intellectual Dinesh D'Souza. He appeared at CPAC 2012. He's about to talk about someone who's actually not that bright. Our President and Commander-in-Chief, Barack Obama. Let's listen.
I, too, am going to be speaking about Barack Obama, who is clearly the most unknown guy to enter the Oval Office in American history. 3 years later, well into his presidency, he remains a mystery. If you look at his own past, there are all kinds of black holes in Obama's background. Who were his friends at Columbia? Whom did he room with? Whom did he eat with? What were his grades? What was his GPA? In one of his books, he talks about living with a girl for quite a long period of time. No woman has ever come forward and said, I am that woman. No journalist has ever reported her name. So there's a lot of personal mystery around Obama. But more than that, there is ideological mystery. And by that I mean it's still unclear, almost at the end of Obama's first term, what his compass is, what's really driving this guy. And we see this because we hear radically different descriptions of Obama. From the left, he's the Messiah. He's the first African-American president. He's the realization of Martin Luther King's ideal. As conservatives, we often hear he's a socialist. He's a Manchurian candidate. He's a secret Muslim. Now, interestingly, these javelins which have been thrown at Obama have grazed him, but haven't really hit him squarely. Why? Because I think there's something about Obama that remains unexplained. He's clearly not a traditional Democrat. He's not like Clinton or Kerry or Dukakis or even the hapless Jimmy Carter. We might disagree with those guys, but we kind of got them. We knew where they were coming from. With Obama, you have a guy who doesn't want the bust of Winston Churchill around him in the Oval Office. You want a guy who wants to remake the space agency into an international outreach agency for Muslims. You want a guy who's blocking oil drilling in America while he subsidizes oil drilling in Brazil and Colombia and encourages it in Mexico. You've got a guy who looks at uprisings in multiple Muslim countries, from Tunisia to Bahrain to Egypt and Libya. He uses force in Libya, but refuses to use force in Syria. Now, when America decided to use force in Libya, Gaddafi had killed a couple of hundred people. In Syria, several thousand people have been massacred, but no action. Obama intervenes with the military to get rid of Mubarak in Egypt. But when there were massive uprisings in Iran, and an opportunity perhaps to overthrow the most anti-American government in recent history, Obama abstains. So what principle of selectivity accounts for why Obama intervenes over here but not over there? What's driving this guy? One advantage of knowing a man's compass is that you can not only understand what they are doing, but you can predict what they are going to do. The film that you saw briefly teased or previewed here is a film called 2016. Why 2016? Because it's actually asking the question, what would America look like in 2016 if Obama were to have a second term? Now, whether he has a second term is in our hands. But in order to know what Obama would do in the second term, remember, he won't be tethered to public opinion. He won't have to run for re-election again. He will be truly, in a sense, a free man in the White House to do what he wants. But what does he actually want to do? Another way to ask that question is simply to ask, what is Obama's dream? Is it the American dream? Is it Martin Luther King's dream? Surprisingly, no. The American dream actually made Obama's success possible. But when he was explicitly asked, is America unique? Do you believe in American exceptionalism? He said, no, we're no more exceptional than the Brits or the Greeks. Interestingly, Martin Luther King's dream made Obama's success possible. And yet, never in his life, not even in his famous race speech in Philadelphia, has Obama explicitly or articulately defended the colorblind ideal. He benefits from it, but it's not his dream. So what is Obama's dream?
My friends, I'm going to stop it right there to tease you. I want you to go to YouTube. You can find the link on my Facebook page, Riell Truth Radio. The headline, Dinesh D'Souza, Obama in 2006. You're going to go. You're going to watch the end of this video. And you're going to find out what's Obama's dream. Don't eat right before you do it. Item from the act. Former guest here on Riell Truth, Steve writes the following. Freedom in America is endangered. Bipartisan complicity plans destroying it altogether. America is on a fast track toward tyranny and ruin. Police state laws threaten everyone. Increasingly, dissent is marginalized. It's not tolerated. Resistance is called dangerous to national security. Federal authorities target activists. So do militarized local police. No-holds-barred tactics are employed, unquote. My friends, again, I'm giving you homework today. Go to Activist Post, read the rest of this piece by Steve Lenman. Item also from the Activist Post. James Smith reporting, the madness continues. The Department of Homeland Security, through the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, has requested another 33 million rounds of 223 caliber 62 grain ammunition in the base year, and for 4 subsequent years, with a limit of 165 million rounds. My friends, that's a lot of duck hunting, isn't it? Better yet, duck. Item from Time magazine. Since 1993, the rate of antipsychotic drug prescribing to children increased by a factor of nearly 8, while prescribing to teens quintupled and in adults nearly doubled, according to a new study. Virtually all of this growth was seen in prescriptions for second-generation or so-called atypical antipsychotic medications, which are often dispensed off-label, meaning the drugs are prescribed for conditions that they are not specifically approved for by the government. Once a drug is allowed on the market, however, the doctors are at liberty to use the drug for other conditions. Antipsychotics were originally approved to treat schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, but these disorders are uncommon in adults and even more rare in children. There is much evidence that the vast increases in atypical antipsychotic prescribing in recent decades were fueled by the aggressive marketing tactics of drug companies. In recent years, every major manufacturer of atypical antipsychotics has been involved in the illegal marketing of the drugs. We'll be back.
Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245.
If the IRS has turned your life upside down, Ameristar Tax Centers has a free, no-obligation consultation just for you. With proven experience, our former IRS agents are licensed to contact the IRS immediately for you, stop the collection activity, and get you instant help to relieve you from this burden. We guarantee not to charge you a penny unless we can help. So call for free information now.
800-519-6297. 800-519-6297. 800-519-6297.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, The feasts of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, these are my feasts. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work on it. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1 through 3.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution.
My friends, you know the name Thomas Sowell very well. He has studied and taught economics, intellectual history, and social policy at institutions that include Cornell University, UCLA, Amherst College, and others. He's written a book, he wrote it a while back, it's not new, called Dismantling America. He's on an interview show here. I'm going to play some comments. This is from the Hoover Institution, I believe. He's talking about how the Obama administration is the embodiment, the personification, and the culmination of dangerous trends that began decades ago. Here's Thomas Sowell talking about the dismantling of America.
Constitution would also assert the United States on December 6, 1941. So it's like the argument that was used when I used to question whether Social Security was fiscally sound. And I said, Social Security has never missed a payment. It's never been a day late or a dollar short. I said, that's always true right up to the moment of collapse.
Again, from Dismantling America. While the Obama administration is not the root cause of the ominous dangers that face this country at home and abroad, it is the embodiment, the personification, and the culmination of dangerous trends that began decades ago. How does the President of the United States embody dangerous trends? How do you see this man?
Oh, my gosh. I see him as someone who all his life has been associated with and part of a group of people who fundamentally don't believe in the principles of this country. Not only people, the most obvious example, obviously, is Jeremiah Wright. People like Bill Ayers, who he's tried to disavow. But people who fundamentally think that we're on the wrong track, we have the wrong principles, and we need to be changed, whether we want to be or not.
Tom, you mentioned Jeremiah Wright, his pastor at church in Chicago. You mentioned Bill Ayers, who was a former member of
the Weather Underground.
The Weather Underground, exactly. What about his formation, his intellectual formation at Columbia, Harvard Law School?
Well, as he himself says, he always sought out the most radical people. He worked as a community organizer. I don't think most people stop and think, what does a community organizer do? He doesn't organize a community.
It's not bake sales. Huh? It's not bake sales he's organizing.
No, he's not telling people in the community how to shop better and stuff like that. He is mobilizing all the resentments, organizing them in order to put them into a battle to get what they want from other people.
Now, you talk about Barack Obama as embodying dangerous trends, quote, that began decades ago.
Oh, yes.
When? This is during your lifetime, during your adult lifetime?
Yes, and perhaps even a little earlier. But I think what you see most clearly, I think, in the academic world, are people who don't think that this country is a great country. One example of a colleague of mine who teaches at Harvard.
All right, we're getting off topic a little bit. The bottom line is this. In the dismantling of America, which I report on every day, and which you see as clearly as I do, Barack Obama is a main player. He is a primary tool of those who want to dismantle this great country. Now, if that's okay by you, well, then I guess I know who you're going to be voting for in November. If it's not okay by you, you have to do more than vote for Mitt Romney, like it or not, and I don't especially love it, but you got to do more than vote for Mitt Romney. You got to bring other people that you know in your life, work, family, you got to bring them and get the vote out. We know that on the Democrat side, they're dragging people out of jail. They're taking people asleep on street corners in the pool of their own urine and dragging them to voting booths to vote. Those are the people I want voting. I want you folks voting because you can see reality. And we need a good, strong dose of reality if we're going to make it through the 21st century. Item from the Wall Street Journal. Reporter Alan Karuba writes the following. I have this theory about Barack Obama. I think he's led a kind of make-believe life in which money was provided and doors were opened because at some point early on somebody or some group, George Soros, anybody, took a look at this tall, good-looking, half-white, half-black young man with an exotic African Muslim name and concluded he could be guided toward a life in politics where his facile speaking skills could even put him in the White House. In a very real way, he's been a young man in a very big hurry. Who else do you know who's written 2 memoirs before the age of 45? The Audacity of Hope, Dreams of My Father was published in 1995 when he was only 34 years old. The Audacity of Hope followed in 2008. If indeed he did write them himself. There are some who think that his mentor and friend Bill Ayers, a man who calls himself a communist with a small c, was the real author. His political skills consisted of rarely voting on anything that might be deemed controversial. He went from a legislator in the Illinois legislature to senator from the state because he had the good fortune of having Mayor Daley's former. He was in the U.S. Senate so briefly that his bid for the presidency was either an act of astonishing self-confidence or part of some greater game plan that had been determined before he first stepped foot in the Capitol. How, many must wonder, was he selected to be a 2004 keynote speaker at the Democratic Convention that nominated John Kerry when virtually no one had ever heard of him before? He outmaneuvered Hillary Clinton in primaries. He took Iowa by storm. A charming young man, an anomaly in the state with a very small black population, he oozed cool in a place where agriculture was the antithesis of cool. He dazzled the locals, and they had an army of volunteers drawn to a charisma that hid any real substance. And then he had the great good fortune of having the Republicans select one of the most inept candidates for the presidency since Bob Dole. And then John McCain did something crazy. He picked Sarah Palin, an unknown female governor from the very distant state of Alaska. It was a ticket that was reminiscent of 1984's Walter Mondale and Geraldine Ferraro, and they went down to defeat. The mainstream political media fell in love with him. It was a schoolgirl crush with febrile commentators like Chris Matthews swooning then and now over the man. The venom directed against McCain, and in particular Palin, was extraordinary. Now, 3 full years into his presidency, all of those gilded years leading up to the White House have left him unprepared to be president. Left to his own instincts, he has a talent for saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. It swiftly became a joke that he could not deliver even the briefest of statements without the ever-present teleprompter. Far worse, however, is his capacity to want to wish away some terrible realities, not the least of which is the Islamist intention to destroy America and enslave the West. Any student of history knows how swiftly Islam initially spread. It knocked on the doors of Europe, having gained a foothold in Spain. The great crowds that greeted him at home or on his campaign world tour were no substitute for having even the slightest grasp of history and the reality of a world filled with really bad people and really bad intentions. My friends, it's linked on my Facebook page. Read the rest of this article. We'll be back with more Real Truth after this.
Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone into the world. By this you will know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that does not confess that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have already heard was coming and is now already in the world. 1 John 4:1.
No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescent to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188. Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245.
Folks, welcome back to Riell Truth. Item from the New York Post. Staff at a Coney Island school where the principal barred kids from singing God Bless the USA are singing a new tune, Take This Job and Shove It. In a mass exit, 25 employees, or 40% of the staff, including 11 of 28 classroom teachers, aides, secretaries, and custodians, have fled PS 90, the Edna Cohen School, over the year, insiders tallied. Most found jobs in other schools. Some retired. Others are trying to escape what they call a toxic building. Principal Greta Hawkins caused an uproar in June when she axed the rousing Lee Greenwood anthem from the kindergarten moving up ceremony. First, she insisted it would offend other cultures. Then she claimed it was too mature. After a Post report, she also yanked a flirty ditty by Justin Bieber on, quote, "My friends, I used to go to PS 90. It's in Coney Island. In fact, I'll go even one better. I was there the day they cut the ribbon to open the school. I was among the very, very first students to walk into the building. All I know about Principal Greta Hawkins is what I'm reading. But I know a lot more about the New York City public school system. It is a disgrace. It is the court of the Borgias. Politics is a blood sport. People are appointed to jobs not knowing what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. It is Byzantine. And that's putting a good spin on it. Now, what's this chick doing? I haven't got the vaguest idea, but I know that the New York City public school system is in shreds. So what does that say about the future of New York City? Item from the Jerusalem Post, Dateline Miami. Hundreds of Florida prisoners have been forced to choose between starving or violating their religious beliefs since the state stopped offering kosher meals in its prisons, the U.S. Justice Department said in a lawsuit. The federal government filed suit against the Florida Department of Corrections in U.S. District Court in Miami on Tuesday, accusing the state of violating prisoners' religious rights by ending its kosher meal service in 2007. Because there's a pending litigation, we're not able to make any comments, to the spokesperson. Florida holds more than 100,000 prisoners at 146 prisons, work camps, and work release centers, and has an annual corrections budget of $2.4 billion. Until 2007, prisoners who wanted kosher meals were assigned to one of 13 facilities, where about 250 at a time opted for meals prepared under Jewish dietary guidelines. Those rules, which exclude pork and avoiding mixing meat and dairy, also satisfy or exceed the food preparation requirements for other faiths. And the participants included Muslims and Seventh-day Adventists, according to a study group commissioned in 2007. Stop. My friends, it's just plain mean-spirited. There is no reason to stop something that's been going, no reason to deny people their religious rights. Look, you know how government works. Once a program or a department is founded, it exists forever. The sun will burn out, and those programs will still be running. So don't tell me that it's just the course of running the state that caused these legislators to take a program that had been in place for years and stop it. It's mean-spirited, it's anti-Semitic, it's anti-religion, all the stuff you really want in your government, right? My friends, not a laughing matter. Whether it's state, local, or federal, we need to get both our hands on government and straighten it out because it's going in very, very bad direction. I'll be back in 23 hours with more Riell Truth. My friend, you be here too. Together, we're going to make some changes for the better, I promise. I'll see you tomorrow. Hasta la vista.